Here's a quick tour of my home use recording studio. If you come in here, you see I live in the middle of nowhere, so I never bother neighbors. This is my control room, and sometimes I play in this room or other people play in this room. My mics and my pre's are in here, and my main computer's in here. I have a variety of different preamps, for different uses. Basically, I put all of my drums through these API clones, and there's some Neve clones, and that's also kind of a Neve clone. I run a Pro Tools system. The drum room is over there, the playing room is over there. A typical workflow for when I'm adding drums at home would be, I would get an email from a client, such as I did today, or was it yesterday? And it comes over via WeTransfer. That's usually why people send stuff over. So I get an email from this guy. He sends me the BPM. I get my files into WeTransfer, and then the files will show up. I expand out the files. So if you see here, everything just kind of expanded out. Now I have a PDF which has a chart for the little cue I'm going to play on. The bass player has already added his part before me, so we all communicate via Dropbox. So now I'm in his Dropbox, and I go to modified, and I see, oh, so the last thing you put in here? The dash, which is what I'm going to work on today. So now I go back over to Pro Tools. I already set this session up because I have a template, and I send my cue mix over to me. What I do is I pulled in the files that are sent to me in advance. So now I'm loaded up to track, and the BPM is loaded in, ready to go. I have a click set up, and what happens is I work by myself in this situation. So you kind of see in the whole studio here. This is for when I'm mixing down or have a full session going. Here's a booth. And what I do is I go in here, and I typically pick out which snare drum I'm going to use and which of the many different mics I'm going to use. I have 4 or 5 different bass drum mics, 3 or 4 different snare drum mics, as you see, a couple different sets of overheads. And I come out of there, come into my playing room, which is a rather large one. The studio was built for the great bass player Mark Egan, and it's designed by John Stork, who designed the famous Jimi Hendrix studio, Electric Lady. It sounds a lot like Avatar if you don't put anything up on the walls. There's a jazz drum set, so I can swing the mics around over to here if I need to record jazz. There's a printer in here, so if anybody needs a chart done really quick. But today's workflow is I'm going to add a track, and I've decided upon this particular configuration of drums and heads. There's a Beta 52 and a sub kick. I'm using a Heil mic on the snare. Sometimes I use a Heil mic on the kick drum. I pre-select which ride cymbal I'm going to use. This is a pile of ride cymbals. There's some hi-hats, crashes, chinas, etc. And what I've chosen is to use this particular setup of heads and cymbals for this session. Here's the Pro Tools session. If I go back, you can see what I'm doing is I'm screen sharing the Pro Tools on the rig on the other room. So that's the workflow. I get my cue mix going, get my headphones going, have my chart ready to go, and I'm about to take one. So that's the workflow for when I'm doing at-home tracks.